Busted, huh? Let's get a divorce. We're moving out of this house.
Right, divorce seems like the only option.
Yay, that's the plan.
The plan? Do you both understand what you're doing? John, are you really going to abandon your newborn child? And Mom, are you really leaving Dad just because he's become physically disabled? Do you have any idea how morally wrong that is in society?
Oh, don't talk about it, as if I'm abandoning anyone. We're leaving this house, but I have no intention of divorcing your father.
Even I, who tried to stay as calm as possible, couldn't hide my confusion at my mother's response. My name is Emily. I'm 32 years old and a corporate employee. I've been married to John for 3 years now. We were colleagues at the same company, and John was assigned to my team when he joined the company as a new graduate. As I helped him with his work and showed him the ropes, we got to know each other better and started going out for meals together after work. It was around the time John was getting the hang of his job. After one of our dinners, he confessed, "I want to marry you." As an only child, I always wished for siblings when I was young, so I saw John as like a cute little brother to me. So honestly, I was taken aback by his marriage proposal. The fact that I was 6 years older than him added to my hesitation. We haven't been dating for that long, and I'm quite a bit older than you. Are you sure that's okay? I shared my hesitations with John honestly. He answered without any doubt.
The age difference doesn't matter. I love you, Emily.
There was a strength in John's eyes as he looked straight at me. It felt like an undiluted love. I decided to believe in John's words. After accepting John's proposal, things moved swiftly. We immediately went to greet John's parents. My in-laws welcomed me with open arms. Like John, they were direct and communicated clearly, which I found comforting. Next, I introduced John to my parents.
What an honest and polite person he is.
Such a refreshing and fine young man.
It was rare for my somewhat shy mother to praise a man she just met so highly. Anyway, I was glad John received such compliments.
Your parents are so kind. I was a bit embarrassed by all the praise.
John seemed to really like my parents too. So we were able to get married without any issues. After getting married, I continued to work for a while without quitting my job. The company was considerate, and although my husband changed departments, my honest and straightforward husband quickly became beloved in his new department. He was proactive in helping out with household chores. Teaching him how to cook, do laundry, and clean one by one reminded me of the times I taught him work tasks when he was a new employee, and it was fun.
Emily, your cooking is delicious. Did you learn that from your mom?
My mom wasn't good at cooking, so I went to cooking classes to improve my skills.
Your cooking is always healthy, but the flavors are still on point.
Can you tell? My mom was always into classical ballet, paying close attention to her figure and posture. That's why I've always been careful about the food I prepare.
Classical ballet, no wonder. She's beautiful and has an amazing figure.
Tell that to my mom when you meet her next time. She'll be thrilled.
Yeah, let's visit your parents' house soon.
I had heard that my friends' husbands usually disliked visiting their wives' parents, but my husband was eager to visit mine. For me, thinking my parents must be feeling lonely with their only daughter married and out of the house, it was a blessing to visit them often. Our marriage was going smoothly, to say the least. But unfortunately, tragedy can strike unexpectedly. My father, George, was involved in a sudden traffic accident and became paralyzed. He was forced into a wheelchair life.
Emily, can you come over today? A caregiver comes during the day, but it's stuff by myself at night.
The image of my mother, not great with household chores, struggling to care for my father came to mind. It would be serious if she accidentally caused him an injury. Understood. I'll come over after work. When I told my husband about going to my parents' house, He immediately offered to drive me there. You don't have to go out of your way to drop me off. But thank you. It's a big help.
Don't mention it. It's only natural to help out when your mom is in trouble, right?
He didn't seem to be forcing himself at all. In fact, I was amazed at how effortlessly he offered to help.
Emily, thank you for coming. And John, I'm so happy you came too. George will be pleased.
Not at all. I've always wanted to visit.
Emily, it's about time for George to go to the bathroom. Can you check on him?
Got it. I'll go to Dad's room.
Is there anything I can help with? Please don't hesitate to ask.
Could you help carry some stuff? Ever since George needed a wheelchair, it's been hard for me to move heavy things. I'll show you where. Could you come with me?
Sure, leave it to me.
Without showing any displeasure, my husband followed my mother. Watching his back, I felt deeply grateful to him from the bottom of my heart.
Emily, John came too.
Dad, were you awake? Or did John's voice wake you up?
It's fine. It's good to see you're well. More importantly, Emily, I'm sorry for all this trouble. I keep causing you hardships.
Don't talk like that. More importantly, Dad, do you need to go to the bathroom?
Yeah, maybe you could take me.
As I slowly pushed my father's wheelchair, I remembered how he had supported me through college. I thought it was time to give back. After caring for my father, my husband and I went back home. Sitting in the living room, sipping tea, John made a suggestion.
Given the situation, why don't we live with your parents? From what I've seen today, it's going to be tough for your mom and dad to live on their own.
That might be true, but are you sure you're okay with that, John?
I'm fine with it. We'll make it work.
I was truly grateful for my husband's suggestion. It might be overthinking, but it felt like he had voiced something I had been considering for a while. Unlike us, my mother was significantly younger than my father. My father had managed a well-known trading company. My mother, who had performed in classical ballet when she was young, caught my father's eye when he happened to attend her performance with some colleagues. He waited for the show to end, hurriedly sent a colleague to buy flowers, and then gave my mother a big bouquet, which led to their relationship. Initially, my mother struggled with household chores, so my grandmother would come over to help with cleaning and cooking. Come to think of it, the seasoning in my cooking does resemble my grandmother's. No doubt, she cooked with my mother's figure in mind. My mother was someone who, as long as she looked beautiful, was indifferent to other things. My father was tolerant of such an attitude, seemingly content with just admiring my mother's beauty. I sometimes thought that's just how marriage is, but when I went to college and started living on my own, I realized our family's values were quite different from societal norms. Starting cooking classes was also a way to remind myself that our household's values weren't the norm. My mother couldn't even take care of my father properly. I didn't dislike my mother's pursuit of beauty, but considering my father's current situation, I felt the need to be by his side and take care of him. I decided to accept my husband's suggestion and saw it as a good opportunity to tell him something. Hey, John, there's something I want to tell you about living with my parents.
Yay, what is it?
I think I'm pregnant.
Really? I'm going to be a dad.
Yes, that's why I'm really grateful you suggested we live with my parents.
Thank you.
My husband was excited about us moving to my parents' house and celebrated my pregnancy. When I immediately told my mother, she was as thrilled as my husband, saying, "That's very helpful. Come tomorrow if you can. You're more than welcome." So my husband and I moved in with my parents, starting a 4-person household. Upon moving back, I quit my job to prepare for the baby and take care of my father. Even my mother, who had been indifferent to household chores, started going to the supermarket to buy the groceries and daily necessities I had listed. My husband cared for my father's well-being, and my father seemed happy to have a male companion. Ironically, my father's injury seemed to deepen our bond as a family of 4. The family gatherings, made possible by my husband's suggestion, made me want to thank him all over again.
Hey, John, I want to go shopping. Can you drive? It's a bit far, but the meat is really cheap there.
Understood. I'll go with you anywhere.
By the weekend, it had become a habit for my mother and husband to go shopping together. I wonder what kind of relationship people would think the young-looking mother and my husband have just by looking at them. They might appear more like siblings than parent and child. My mother looked that young. Time passed, and I safely gave birth to a healthy baby boy. The whole family congratulated me on my childbirth and celebrated it. Among them, my father's joy was exceptional, as he looked at his first grandchild with a smile I had never seen before. Since it's a boy, it's not a dream that he might take over my father's trading company in the future. Just when I thought our family would become even livelier with the new addition, misfortune struck without warning. One day, when I was about to go buy diapers and formula, I found that the usual store was out of stock. So I decided to return home and drive to another store that sells baby products. It was a holiday, and although my husband was at home, I didn't want to bother him with shopping in case he bought the wrong items. So I drove myself to the store.
Why don't you take some time for yourself and stop by a cafe after shopping? It's rare for you to get out of the house.
I remembered my husband saying that as he saw me off at the front door. I appreciated his thoughtfulness, but for some reason, I also had a bad feeling. Despite not being fully recovered from childbirth and lacking in strength, I wondered why he wouldn't accompany me to the store. Normally, my husband would insist on driving even if I said I was okay. Unconsciously, I made a U-turn and headed back home, thinking of an excuse for my son's return. As I arrived, I heard a strange noise. Following the sound, it seemed to come from my mother's room on the second floor. My father's spacious room, once on the second floor, is now ours, and due to his wheelchair, his room is on the first floor. My mother's room is next to ours on the second floor. First, I quietly peeked into my father's room. He was lying in bed, taking his usual nap. There was no sign of my mother or husband on the first floor. The bad feeling I had when I turned the car around was turning into a sense of foreboding. With each step up the stairs to the second floor, the strange noise grew louder. Upon reaching the second floor hallway, the strange noises were accompanied by the heavy breathing of a woman. There was no room for doubt. I was oddly calm. Standing in front of my mother's room, my bad feeling turned into certainty. I took out my smartphone, opened the door, and simultaneously hit the record button for video. There they were, my husband and my mother, entangled and naked. Silence ensued. They stood there, mouths agape, unable to say anything even if prompted. I spoke quietly. First, get dressed, then both of you come downstairs. As coming down the stairs, I noticed the phone camera was still in shooting mode, so I hit the stop button on the recording. I didn't want to watch what I had recorded, but it could serve as evidence if needed. When did the two of you start this affair? My husband wouldn't look up, avoiding eye contact. In contrast, my mother sat defiantly in a chair, crossing her legs.
Well, since it's out in the open, I'll be clear. It wasn't long after you and your husband moved into this house. That's when John said he loved me.
Really?
I'm sorry, Emily. Your mother was so attractive. I couldn't control my feelings.
I thought it was rather my place to be unable to control my feelings. Even though I tried to remain calm, there was a limit to my patience. Just because you can't control your feelings doesn't mean everything is forgivable, right?
Whether it's forgivable or not doesn't really matter anymore, does it, John?
Yes, yes.
We knew it was unforgivable from the start. That's why we had a plan in case it ever came out. Right, John.
Since it's out, let's divorce. We'll leave this house.
Yay, we have no choice but to divorce.
Yay, that's what I plan to do.
That's what you plan. Do you both understand what this means? John, are you going to abandon your newborn son? Mom, are you going to leave Dad now that he's disabled? Do you both truly understand how morally wrong this is?
Oh, don't talk so negatively. I may be leaving this house, but I have no intention of divorcing George.
Even trying to stay calm, I couldn't hide my confusion at my mother's response. Leaving but not divorcing, what does that mean?
Do you know how many years I've been with him? As his wife, I have a right to his inheritance. If I divorce him now, I'll lose everything, won't I?
My mother was refusing to divorce my father just to lay claim to his inheritance. Indeed, even if they're living apart, she still have the right to claim her share of the inheritance as part of their marital property. What a greedy person. That's just rotten.
I'm only claiming what's rightfully mine. Why would I divorce and willingly give up what I could have?
My anger turned into sheer disbelief. John, I'm definitely leaving you. My husband, who had been looking down, seemed persuaded by my mother's argument and finally looked at me.
I understand, but I'll refuse the divorce depending on the conditions.
Conditions? What conditions?
The condition is that you and George agree that Sarah won't divorce him. I'm fine with divorcing you, but in return, Sarah and George's marital status stays as it is.
With those terms my husband laid down, I realized the depth of their relationship. And apparently, he was under her influence. There's no way I can agree to that. How far gone are you both?
Then I can't divorce you either. No need to pay child support. Now, what's your choice?
I realized I was at a disadvantage, but I couldn't just accept their terms. I can't decide this alone. I'll discuss it with Dad before making any decision. I said that and headed to my father's room. The door to his room was slightly ajar. Before I could say anything, he gestured for me to be quiet and started speaking softly.
Emily, don't worry about me. Divorce John as soon as possible.
I realized he must have overheard our conversation, but doing that would mean you can't divorce that woman.
It's okay. I have a plan. Just divorce that man right now. As I say.
Despite his weakened physical state, there was strength in his eyes and weight in his words. I figured things would be okay if I just went along with what he said. Believing in him, I went to declare that I would divorce my husband and accept keeping my parents' marriage intact.
Let me know as soon as he passes away.
With those parting words, my mother and ex-husband left our family home. Dad, I'm sorry. It's all because of me that this happened. If only I hadn't married that man.
There's no need to worry. Those two will face the consequences of their actions soon enough.
I couldn't grasp what my father was planning, but I could see in his eyes that he was sure of his victory. What's your plan, Dad?
I'm not foolish. Here's the strategy.
With that, he slowly and carefully shared his thoughts with me. So that's it. Then we can certainly get back at them. From then on, I lived my life without concern for those two. During the day, a caregiver took care of my father, and I returned to work. My son grew healthy and strong. I've gotten pretty used to taking care of my dad after coming home from work. He enjoyed playing with his grandson. Watching them play so affectionately, I realized my son bore more resemblance to my father than to my ex-husband. I hoped that when he grew up, he would be like my father. 3 years passed amidst these busy days. My father had been unwell for a while and was hospitalized. His condition never improved, and he passed away quietly. I was calm, because I had prepared myself since his hospitalization. Looking at my father's peaceful face, I felt ready for what was to come. I immediately started arranging for his funeral. Many people attended my father's funeral. He was well liked. Among the attendees, I spotted those too.
It's been a while. Good to see you're doing well.
What are you two doing here?
When one's husband dies, it's only natural to show up at the funeral.
After abandoning your own husband and grandson, you have the nerve to show up.
You know, Emily, men and women are bound by instinct. Rationality doesn't apply to those drawn together by instinct. Understand?
If you believe that, why come here? Why not stay together forever? My ex-husband interjected as if he had been waiting for the moment.
We came to fulfill a promise.
Promise?
As we discussed before, Sarah has a right to your father's inheritance, doesn't she?
Yes, I came to claim the inheritance as promised. Tell me how much I'm entitled to receive.
When they brought up the inheritance, I had my response ready. Understood. However, there's not a single cent of inheritance to give you.
What? What kind of nonsense are you talking about?
Don't try to act tough by lying here, Emily. Sarah should be entitled to a portion of the inheritance, right?
I'm telling you there's no inheritance to give to someone who's already divorced.
When did he and I get divorced? I don't recall agreeing to a divorce.
Mom, have you forgotten? You once confronted Dad with a divorce paper bearing your signature. The confidence on my mother and ex-husband's faces seemed to falter. I pressed on. Dad kept the divorce papers you thrust at him. Soon after you two left the family home, I filed them. There's no expiration date on a divorce paper, meaning from the moment I submitted it while Dad was alive, your marriage was officially dissolved. You're now nothing more than a stranger to Dad, not entitled to any inheritance. Can you understand this situation with reason, not instinct? I could see my mother and ex-husband's faces turn pale. Do you understand now? So there's nothing more to discuss with you two. This isn't a place for you. Before we knew it, a crowd of Dad's admirers had gathered around us, all of them directing hostility towards the two who had betrayed and hurt Dad and me. Realizing the situation, my mother and ex-husband quickly left without another word. I heard they had been living a life of luxury far beyond their means, quickly depleting my mother's savings and accruing debt, hoping to repay it with the expected inheritance from my father. But their plans were completely foiled. Where they are now and how they're living is unknown to me. Frankly, it doesn't concern me. I had started working at the trading company my father ran years ago. He taught me everything about the business during his lifetime. Thanks to that, I was able to take over as president after him. Now as president, I'm running the company my father built while raising my son. I feel my son's resemblance to my father grows stronger with each passing day. Someday, I hope my son will take over the company that my father built and I've protected, and make it even greater. But even if he chooses a different path, I plan to support his dreams with all my heart. As a parent, it's my duty to see him stand on his own 2 feet. No matter what happens, I'll never betray my son. That's what being a parent is all about.